There's a kind of silence most people fear, not the silence of a quiet room, but the silence of being alone with yourself. No distractions, no noise. No one to validate you, comfort you, or tell you you're okay. Most people run from it. They fill every moment with voices, screens, people, anything to avoid sitting with their own thoughts. Because being alone forces you to face something terrifying, yourself. But here's what they don't tell you. The strongest people you know, they don't fear that silence. They seek it. Not because they hate people, not because they're broken or cold, but because they've discovered something the world doesn't teach you, that real power doesn't come from crowds. It comes from solitude. Let me tell you about a man who understood this better than most. His name was Nikola Tesla. You know him as the genius who imagined the future. Wireless energy, radio waves, alternating current. But what you don't know is how he lived. Tesla spent most of his life alone. Not lonely. Alone. He worked in silence, ate in silence, walked the streets of New York late at night, alone with his thoughts. People thought he was strange. Maybe he was. But in that solitude, he saw things no one else could see. He once said, "Be alone. That is the secret of invention. Be alone. That is when ideas are born." You see, Tesla didn't avoid people because he was afraid of them. He avoided them because he knew something most people never realize, that your mind can only go deep when the world goes quiet. And it's not just Tesla. Think about every monk who ever climbed a mountain, every philosopher who disappeared into the woods, every artist who locked themselves in a studio for months. They weren't running away from life. They were running toward clarity, because solitude isn't about being lonely. It's about being free. Free from opinions. Free from expectations. Free from the noise that tells you who you should be, what you should want, how you should feel. When you're alone, really alone, something shifts. You stop performing. You stop pretending. And for the first time, you hear your own voice. But here's the hard truth most people don't want to accept. Being alone reveals who you really are, and for most of us, that's terrifying. Because when there's no one around to distract you, you're forced to face the things you've been avoiding, your fears, your regrets, the dreams you buried, the lies you told yourself. That's why people stay busy. That's why they surround themselves with noise and people and constant stimulation. Not because they love it, but because silence is scary. It forces you to see the truth. And the truth doesn't always feel good. I remember reading about Bruce Lee once, not the fighter everyone knows, but the man behind the myth. Bruce Lee spent hours alone. Training, yes, but also thinking, writing, meditating. He kept journals filled with philosophy, questions, reflections. He wasn't just building his body. He was sharpening his mind, and he wrote something I'll never forget. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. But before he could do anything, he had to know himself, and that only happens in solitude. Bruce Lee became a legend not because he was around people all the time, but because he spent time alone, refining his thoughts, questioning everything, becoming clear about who he was and what he stood for. When you're constantly surrounded by others, you absorb their fears, their doubts, their limitations. But when you're alone, you become your own teacher, and that's the hidden power of solitude. It teaches you to rely on yourself. Think about it. When you're always with people, you start depending on them for validation. You need them to tell you you're good enough. You need their approval, their comfort, their energy. But solitude strips all that away. It forces you to validate yourself, to comfort yourself, to find your own energy. And that's when you stop being weak. That's when you stop breaking every time someone criticizes you, or abandons you, or disagrees with you. Because you've learned the most important lesson of all, that you don't need anyone to complete you. You're already whole. I'm not saying you should cut everyone off and live like a hermit. That's not strength. That's fear. Real strength is being able to enjoy solitude without feeling lonely. It's being comfortable with your own company. It's not needing constant distraction or validation to feel okay. Because the truth is, the relationship you have with yourself is the most important relationship you'll ever have. And if you can't sit with yourself in silence, How can you ever truly know who you are? Let me tell you about someone else, someone you might not expect, Mahatma Gandhi. Before he became the man who changed a nation, he spent years in silence, literal silence. He practiced what he called days of silence, where he wouldn't speak at all. Not a word. People thought it was a religious practice, and maybe it was, but it was also something deeper. Gandhi knew that words lose their power when you use too many of them. He knew that most people talk just to fill the space, but silence gives you clarity. It gives you control. And in that silence, Gandhi discovered his strength. Not the strength to fight with fists, but the strength to stand firm when the whole world was against him. That's what solitude does. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you unshakable. Now I know what you might be thinking, but humans are social creatures. We need people. And you're right, we do need connection. We do need love and friendship and community. But here's the difference. Weak people need others to survive. Strong people want others to share life with. There's a huge difference between needing someone and choosing someone. When you need people, you become dependent. You lose yourself in them. You change who you are just to keep them around. But when you're comfortable alone, you choose people from a place of strength. You don't cling to toxic relationships because you're afraid of being alone. You don't settle for less because you can't stand your own company. You love people, but you don't need them to complete you. And that changes everything. I think that's why the strongest people often seem distant, not cold, just selective. They don't waste time on shallow conversations. They don't surround themselves with people just to feel less alone. They protect their solitude because they know how valuable it is. Because in that solitude, they've built something most people never will. A deep, unshakable sense of self. They know who they are. They know what they believe. They know what they want. And they don't need the world's permission to be themselves. Here's something I learned the hard way. You can be surrounded by 100 people and still feel completely alone. Because loneliness isn't about being physically alone. It's about feeling disconnected from yourself, and the only way to reconnect is through solitude. When you spend time alone, really alone, you start to hear the whispers you've been ignoring, the dreams you buried, the truth you've been avoiding, the person you're meant to become. And slowly, you start to rebuild. Not the person everyone expects you to be, but the person you actually are. I want to tell you one more story about a man named Seneca. He was a philosopher in ancient Rome, wealthy, powerful, surrounded by people, but he wrote something that stayed with me. Everywhere is nowhere. When a person spends all their time in foreign travel, they end up having many acquaintances, but no friends. He wasn't talking about travel. He was talking about life, about how we scatter ourselves across so many people, so many distractions, so many places, that we never truly go deep, not with others, and not with ourselves. Seneca knew that solitude isn't about isolation. It's about depth. It's about going inward so you can come back stronger, clearer, more alive. And maybe that's what you need right now. Not more people, not more noise, but more silence. Time to sit with yourself. Time to ask the hard questions. Time to stop running and start listening. Because the strongest version of you isn't out there in the world, it's inside you, waiting, watching, ready to emerge the moment you stop being afraid of your own company. The world will tell you that being alone means you're broken, that if you enjoy solitude, something's wrong with you. But don't believe that. The strongest people in history, the ones who changed the world, who created beauty, who stood for something, they all knew the value of being alone. Not because they hated people, but because they loved themselves enough to spend time with their own thoughts. And maybe that's the real lesson here. That solitude isn't about being lonely. It's about being whole. It's about learning to be your own best friend, your own teacher, your own source of strength. Because when you can sit in silence and feel at peace, when you can be alone and feel complete, when you can face yourself without fear, that's when you become truly powerful. Not the kind of power that needs to prove itself, but the quiet, unshakable kind. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't break when people leave. The kind that stays strong, even in the silence. So maybe it's time to stop running. Stop filling every moment with noise. Stop surrounding yourself with people just to avoid being alone. Maybe it's time to embrace the silence, to sit with yourself, to discover the hidden power that's been waiting inside you all along, because the strongest people don't fear being alone. They know that's where real strength begins.